right, it is 6:30, so we'll get started. Welcome to the Harris County Flood Control District's virtual community engagement meeting to discuss the Barker Reservoir Watershed Channel Desilt and Repair Program. My name is Sparkle Bell with the Flood Control District Communications team. This virtual community meeting is being offered by the Flood Control District to continue to share vital information with the community during this period when in-person public meetings have been suspended due to safety concerns from the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm joined tonight by a team of flood control district leadership and subject matter experts to ensure we continue to keep you up to date on these important flood mitigation projects in your community. We are glad to see you all so engaged in this project and look forward to sharing updates. This virtual public meeting will begin with a presentation to share project updates, including the construction schedule and other important information on the Barker Reservoir Watershed Channel Desilt and Repair Program. The presentation will be followed by a virtual question and answer session with Flood Control District team members. Attendees will be able to submit comments and questions through the website or via phone. Any comments not addressed during tonight's Q&A session will receive a response from the Flood Control District after the event. Instructions on how to participate in the virtual open house are included on the slides, on the virtual meeting webpage, and the Flood Control District website. I will also share a reminder of these instructions when we reach the Q&A portion of the meeting. We will now transition to Marcus Steckett, Engineering Division Director, who will share information about the district and this project. Marcus, over to you.
Thank you, Sparkle, and a special thank you to each of you for joining us tonight. In this presentation, we'll give you a brief overview of the desilt and repairs for the Barker Reservoir Watershed. But before we get into the project, we want to share some information about the Flood Control District. So Harris County Flood Control District, we are a special purpose district, and we were created in 1937 by Texas legislature in response to floods that devastated the Houston area in 1929 and 1935. The goal was to create a local partner to leverage federal funding for flood damage reduction. Our mission has greatly expanded over 80 years with billions of dollars of infrastructure improvements in the ground. And while we are a separate entity from Harris County, the Harris County Commissioners Court serves as our governing body. So the mission of the Harris County Flood Control District is to provide flood damage reduction projects that work with appropriate regard for community and natural values. One of the most difficult challenges we face is constructing effective projects that are sensitive to community and natural values in highly urbanized areas. Harris County includes 22 main watersheds, totaling approximately 1,800 square miles and more than 2,500 linear miles of channel. 2,500 miles is approximately the distance from New York to California. Each watershed has its own unique characteristics and needs, and tonight we're in the Barker Reservoir watershed of Northwest Harris County. Our area is flood prone, and here are some reasons why. We are prone to extreme rainfall events such as hurricanes and tropical storms. We have flat, slow draining topography or landscape, and we have clay soils that do not absorb excess rainfall quickly. The Flood Control District works with agencies or shares jurisdictions over flooding in Harris County. This slide illustrates that shared jurisdiction. Inside neighborhoods, as shown on the left side of this illustration, storm sewers and roadside ditches collect stormwater and start the process of moving it away from streets and homes. Storm sewers and roadside ditches are the responsibility of the underlying municipality and Harris County Engineering and unincorporated parts of the county. The larger bayous and channels that collect the storm water and move it through the drainage system to Galveston Bay are the responsibility of the Flood Control District. This is shown on the right side of the illustration. In the middle is a stormwater detention basin, sometimes constructed by the Flood Control District. When storm sewers are increased, this creates an increase in runoff. Since it is our policy to avoid impacts to properties downstream, detention basins help to safely take in and temporarily store excess rainfall during heavy rain events. Often, we partner with Harris County precincts, utility districts, and others to add recreational amenities such as trails to these basins and along our channels. So on August 25th, 2018, Harris County voters approved $2.5 billion for flood risk reduction projects. This vote followed a series of meetings across Harris County in each watershed, which resulted in a list of 181 bond projects, including 5 in the Barker Reservoir watershed. 144 of those 181 projects have been initiated so far. A total of more than $680 million in partnership funding received so far stretches this bond program even farther. The actual timing of individual projects will depend on a variety of factors, including environmental permitting, right-of-way acquisition, and utility relocations. Project lists and schedules will be updated periodically. Partnership funding is an important aspect of the 2018 bond program. This graphic illustrates the many sources of federal, state, and local funding the Flood Control District is working to secure for Harris County. Each agency has its own definition of eligible projects and its own requirements for local match funding. So tonight we'll be discussing the Barker Reservoir Watershed Channel Desilt and Repair Program. This is Harris County Flood Control Bond Project ID F-52. There are 47 miles of open waterways that drain into the Barker Reservoir that make up the Barker Reservoir watershed. To the right of this map of the Barker Reservoir watershed, which is shown in the light gray, and the boundary of the Barker Reservoir shown in the darker gray. The program we are talking about tonight involves desilts of channels to restore them to their original design capacity and repair erosions and slope failures where they have occurred. Work efforts began before Hurricane Harvey and the associated maintenance program. This program includes channels within the Barker Reservoir watershed for which the Flood Control District has property rights. The limits of this program do not extend west of the Grand Parkway. Channels included have been previously developed and altered from their natural state. Overall, the program includes channels and their tributaries totaling over 22 miles. It is important to note that there are a different number of construction packages for both desilts and repairs. In this exhibit, you'll see the overall boundaries of the Barker Reservoir watershed. You see the outline of the Barker Reservoir watershed divided between the 3 counties of Harris, Fort Bend, and Waller. We are limited by the Grand Parkway to the west. The goals and objective of this program include desilting channels, repairing channel segments, and creating a database for future maintenance efforts. This database will help the Flood Control District effectively develop future repairs and desilt projects. So, what is desilting? Desilting is the removal of sediment within a channel that has been deposited throughout multiple rain events. The sediment is removed to restore the channel to its original capacity, which allows the channel to efficiently convey stormwater downstream to the reservoir. Deposition naturally occurs when fast-moving water slows and sediment settles in the channel. The original design for the Flood Control District channel consists of a trapezoidal shape as shown in the top image. Over the years, sediment will deposit and build up in the channels along the bottom, as shown by the green lines in the second image. This program will remove the accumulated sediment and restore the channel to its original design. Why are channel repairs needed? A channel repair addresses the failures that occur within flood control district right-of-way and/or within the channel itself. Years worth of rain events can cause a channel to slowly erode, which can lead to larger channel failures. Additionally, repairs include concrete structures and storm sewer outfalls. Here you can see a couple of images that depict erosion. Over the years, the channel bottoms have eroded, leading to large failures along the channel slopes. So, construction expectations. There will be truck traffic and possibly temporary lane closures that run adjacent to our project sites. You can expect there will be limited access and temporary trail closures and footpaths. Traffic control will be implemented when necessary along roadways for the safety of the working personnel and the public. Residents near the construction sites will see dump trucks, excavators, and other equipment that will create an increased amount of dust in these areas. We will try to minimize impact to trees. However, some trees will have to be removed for construction access. So the current status of our desilts are as follows. Construction of the desilt package began in October 2020. Since construction began, no desilt has been completed at this time, but construction is expected to last 310 days. This exhibit highlights the desilt package as originally scoped. As I mentioned earlier, the construction for this desilt package began in October of 2020. For the current status of the repair package, the site visits have been conducted and approximately 30% of the design has been completed. The boundaries of the repair projects are shown here. So now we'll talk about the program schedule and the next steps. The program began approximately a year ago. Construction activity for the desilt package is expected to be completed by fall of 2021. For the repair package, anticipated construction is expected to bid early spring 2021. Another community engagement meeting will be held in 2021 for program updates. However, if you would like quarterly updates, this information will be shared on our project webpage. And now back over to you, Sparkle.
Thank you, Marcus, for that helpful overview of this project. Before we move into the Q&A session, I want to share a quick reminder that we would love to hear from you on this and other projects rolling out across Harris County. If you have additional comments or questions throughout the life cycle of this project, or if you would like to sign up to receive email updates on this and other projects in the watershed, please visit hcfcd.org/F52. Community engagement is an important component of the work we do, and we invite your continued participation as projects move forward. As a reminder, there are 3 ways to submit a comment about this project during tonight's session. You can submit a comment on the site in the box near the presentation live stream. You can also submit a comment on the Flood Control District's website at publicinput.com/Barker Reservoir, or submit a comment via phone using the meeting code 9276. If you're joining us via phone tonight, please press *3 to leave a message. Additionally, I want to reiterate that any questions not addressed during tonight's Q&A session will receive a response from the Flood Control District following the event. Information from this meeting and a recording of the live stream will be available on the district's website and YouTube channel. Now, joining Marcus for our Q&A session tonight are Jonathan St. Romain and Brandy Johnson. who are both overseeing efforts on this project. And with that, I will transition into our first question. And Jonathan, I'd like for you to take this one. The question is, this is a desilting effort. Can you explain the basics of a desilt? What machines are used? And where does the material go when you take it out of the channel?
Sure. Good question, Helen. The basics of the desilt are the contractor uses fairly heavy machinery, large backhoes and excavators that they're able to reach down with their buckets and physically just reach down into the channel and scoop out that material. And they'll also build those slopes back up according to the specific grade, because remember, we talked about the goal of this is to restore the channels to their original design. And so in addition to physically scooping out that material, they'll also massage and regrade those slopes back to their original condition. The material goes to approved disposal sites. There's a number of criteria that or requirements for contractors, and they have to abide by this criteria. One of those is they can't dispose of the material into a 500-year floodplain, among others. So we have approved disposal sites, and it's a contractor's responsibility from there.
Thank you so much for that, Jonathan. That's helpful information for us, for those of us that aren't engineers. Brandy, I'd like for you to take this next question, and it's one that I think we get a lot, and it is, there are a lot of trails where I live. How will the trails be affected?
Yes, so we have coordinated with multiple entities within the project area that have trails within the area, and the trails will be closed throughout the duration of the construction in that area. You will see closure signs and construction fence that we ask the residents to please abide by and stay out of those areas. If the trails are impacted or damaged due to the construction activities, we will coordinate with those entities to let them know what there is for their responsibility to replace it. However, we are working with the contractor to minimize damaging or driving on the trails throughout the duration of the contract.
All right, thank you. And our next question is all about trees. And Jonathan, I'd like for you to take this one. How are the trees going to be impacted as we do our desilt work?
Well, the easy answer here is it depends. It depends on the location. I can say a number of trees have already been have been removed or moved to new locations. Harris County Precinct 3 has been very proactive, and we've coordinated with them on this project. And for some time, they've known about this, and they've been able to get out in front and take the trees that are able to be removed and to bring them to new locations in other Harris County Precinct 3 parks and natural areas. Some trees that you see might not be affected. We might be able to steer around them and avoid them. And when we have these projects, we do make efforts to avoid trees when and where we can. Others, unfortunately, will have to be removed by the contractor. A lot of times this happens in cases or in locations where the contractor has to access the channel from other roadways. And so it's a combination of things, but we do try to move those trees to new locations when and where we can.
All right, thank you for that. Brandy, would you take the next question? It is, when are you expected to start work?
Yes, so the contractor has been to the site and they have conducted a pre-construction survey. So that's kind of one of the first steps that has to be done. And they're actively working on the survey along with our design team to get that approved. You could anticipate to see some type of excavation toward the end of this month of October, as far as seeing dump trucks and excavators out there actually removing the material.
Okay, thank you. Marcus, I'd like for you to take our next question, and it's coming from Carl. Carl says, can you please explain a little more about how you work with the Army Corps to ensure the reservoirs are operating properly?
Yes, and that's a great question. It's actually one that we receive a lot. So the Army Corps of Engineers, they are the owners, operators of the reservoir itself. The flood control district really has no role in the operations or the daily operations of that reservoir. Our role is, for the most part, the portions that are outside of the reservoir to make sure that we maintain those. So that's a good question.
All right, thank you. Our next question is from Sandra. Brandy, I'd like for you to take this one. Will the desilting of the channel cause the water to flow faster and flood my home?
Desilt projects do not increase flooding risk in any area, either upstream or downstream of the project site. These projects will improve stormwater conveyance by restoring the channel's capacity to hold and convey the stormwater.
All right, thank you for that. Jonathan, would you take our next question from Pam? And it is, when do you think we should expect to see trucks in our neighborhood? I'm concerned about kids walking to school.
Sure. So piggybacking a little bit off of Brandy was saying just a little bit earlier, we'll start with the surveying effort out there this month, and then once that's complete, we'll transition, or the contractor will transition into the actual hauling of material. So we think sometime later this fall. Of course, I can't speak to your specific area and the kid's specific route to school and where those trucks will be right now. But yeah, a little bit later this fall is when trucks will start moving.
And that's a good reminder. Jonathan touches on something. Sometimes we get really specific questions in these meetings that are really tied to your specific area. And we need a little bit more background to effectively answer those questions. So if you do have one of those questions, please do submit those questions and we will follow up after the event. We do want to make sure we have all of the information and make sure we're getting you the right answers. So again, that URL is hcfcd.org/F52. So if you have very specific questions, please feel free to submit those there. We encourage community involvement and we encourage your submission of questions and comments. It helps us to do our jobs better. All right, up next is a question for Brandy, and that is, if you are removing silt, and if removing silt helps with water flow, why not dig deeper to carry more water downstream faster?
Good question. So these channels that we're performing this maintenance work on are channels that have been designed by the flood control to convey the water at a certain rate and hold a certain capacity. So our effort is only to maintain our infrastructure that we've already have in place by removing the sediment to restore it to the original design capacity.
All right, thank you. Brandy, our next question is from Mr. Johnson, and it is, when will details of the project be available, what segments and when? For example, will the desilting start upstream and work downstream or vice versa?
You can find more information on our website about what channels are included within the desilting effort. However, the means and method is on the contractor as far as if they choose to start upstream or downstream. It's whatever works best for them as far as keeping the sediment off the project site and they can maximize their work effort. If you would like to send us an email with your contact information after this, I can go into a little bit more details about if you have any specific questions on the location of that, which area we will start in.
All right, thank you for that. I see some really great questions coming in, but I do want to remind you that there are 3 ways to submit a comment about this project, and that is you can submit a comment on the site in the box near the presentation live stream, which many of you are doing. We are taking questions live, so we encourage you to continue. You can also submit a comment at publicinput.com Barker Reservoir, or submit a comment via phone using the meeting code 9276. If you're joining us via phone tonight, just press *3 and leave a message. And I'll just remind everyone once more that if we don't get to your question tonight, we will follow up with a response after the event. And the presentation, along with the live stream, will be available on the district's website and on our YouTube channel. And we get those up pretty quickly. So starting tomorrow, you'll be able to watch this video back. All right, our next question is for Jonathan, and it's from Jeffrey. Jeffrey, thank you so much for being here. The question is, how and when will we know what trees will be trimmed, moved, and/or removed? Will we have advance notice so that we have an opportunity to move what we can?
Yes, Jeffrey, I'm fairly sure that most of the trees that would be removed, I think have already by Harris County Precinct 3. It's not to say that there can't be another effort for that to take place. It's difficult to talk about or to speak with any specificity on this yet. So I think as Sparkle outlined just a little bit earlier, it might be helpful to send a question in on our website. And if you're concerned about a particular area or specific trees, we might be able to work with you on that.
All right, thank you. Marcus, I'd like for you to take our next question from James, and it is, this is the question. It is my understanding that the original bond was to fund a pilot program to study the effectiveness of desilting the channels. Is that true? Will another bond measure need to be approved to fund future desilting or improved drainage projects?
Yes, and that's a question. I'll be honest, I wasn't aware that the desilts were part of a pilot project. But what I can say is that we do plan to continue to have a maintenance log. So going forward, we do expect that to have a plan for our maintenance projects going forward, which is part of the desilt projects that we're doing right now. In terms of another bond project, there's definitely a possibility for us to have another bond, but at this time, we just don't know whether or not that we will go forward with that.
Okay, thank you for that, Marcus. Brandy, our next question is from Brett, and it is, one could argue that over the years, the accumulated silt has created a stable slope condition, and removing the silt from the base of the slope could initiate instability. Any concerns here, and if so, how to mitigate?
Yes, great question. Before I answer that question, I kind of want to piggyback on what Marcus was talking about when he answered the question about the pilot program. The purpose of the pilot effort for this program was to see how we were going to roll out the program as far as the amount of channels over a large watershed. So that the reason why it was a pilot project was to take a sample to see what that design will look like, a time frame, and how effective the design process is to get the work done as soon as possible for that area. So to answer the question about the accumulated silt and removing the silt from there and the stability of the slopes, when the silt is moved from the channel and some of the side slopes, is also included within the contract for them to stabilize the slope as well as put vegetation on there. So toward the end of the project, vegetation will be reestablished to hold that to hold the slope in place to help minimize the creeps that may come due to if we have some type of rain events. And then also there's a 1-year warranty on the project after the contractor is complete to make sure that the project is still holding up intact. And by that time, vegetation has really settled and the roots have grown into the ground to stabilize that slope.
All right, thank you so much for that. Marcus, I'd like for you to share a little bit more about the importance of partnerships. And we have that, what we call the spaghetti slide that has some really great information. So would you take a few minutes and just kind of explain how important those are?
Yeah, so the big thing about these partnership projects are being able to have additional sources of funding for different projects. This helps us a lot with, again, with the Corps being one of our larger supporters, FEMA, USDA, the EDA, and NRCS. But all of these agencies sort of help us fund projects above and beyond what we would typically be able to do. So they all have these different types of requirements to achieve these grants or achieve these fundings. Some of them prefer a more natural solution to flood damage reduction. Some of them are related to low to moderate income areas, but these are very important for us to partner with other agencies because it helps stretch the funding that we currently have further.
All right, and Marcus, I'd like for you to take this one as well. Or actually, Brandy, I'd like for you to take this one. How many additional acre feet of water can the reservoir hold with the desilting project?
So the reservoir is not owned or operated by the flood control district. So we would ask that you would contact the Corps of Engineers or direct that question to them as far as the storage volume that the reservoirs can hold.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, Marcus, go ahead.
And so I can add to what Brandy said. So this project is purely a desilt of the channels that are some portions a little bit into the reservoir and a large portion of them outside of the reservoir. But this project is not intended to increase a volume inside the reservoir. So the volume that's within the reservoir today will essentially be what it is once we complete these desilt projects.
Okay, thank you. And Brandy, we have a question from David. What is the schedule for T101-01-01 and T101-01-00? They are in my neighborhood.
Again, I would ask if you would submit that comment in your contact information, and we can get back to you on that. That would have to be a coordination with the contractor as far as their schedule. I do know that we did talk early on in our pre-construction meeting about those two channels, but again, it's means and method of the contractor. So if you could provide us with your contact information, we will be sure to follow up with you with that answer.
Okay, and our next question is from Greg. Brandy, I'd like for you to take this one as well. I've already seen a lot of desilting work on T-103 between Mason and Fry and Mason Creek northwest of I-10. Is there more work to come on these segments?
Yes, the work that you've probably seen has to do with the Harvey repairs. So the desilting project is not the only work that the flood control district is currently doing within the watershed. You may have seen other projects that were related to the Harvey repair project. And those projects just consisted of immediate areas where needed immediate attention. If there were slope failures or severely damaged outfall pipes, they were addressed. So the work that you're probably referencing was that work that was done there. And then the flood control district will come back with the desilting, a part of this program to do the desilting effort. And if there's other areas that may have eroded or outfall repairs that are needed, we will address that at that time.
Okay, lots of great questions coming in. Again, as a reminder, there are 3 ways to submit a comment about this project during tonight's session. You can submit a comment like many of you are doing using the box near the presentation live stream. Also on our website at publicinput.com/Barker Reservoir. Or you can submit a comment via phone using the meeting code 9276. If you're joining us via phone tonight, please press *3 to leave a message. And because, and we have that information on your screen, again, if you had really project-specific questions, this is the screen for you. So grab a pen, hcfcd.org/F52. And our comment period for this particular project goes to October 22nd. So again, that's hcfcd.org /F52. You can also continue to make comments on this specific program through October 22nd. Now, because so many of you have joined later, I'd like to go back and go through a few of our slides from earlier, just to make sure everyone has all of the information they need about this particular program and this particular project. So if we can go back to the project-specific slides. Marcus, I'd like for you to just share a little bit high level for anybody that might have joined the meeting later.
All right, no problem. So again, this is Barker Reservoir Channel Silt and Repair Program. It consists of 47 miles of open waterways. So these are bayous that drain directly into the Barker Reservoir. This program involves just the desilting to restore these channels to their natural capacity and doing some repairs of the erosion and the slope failures that have occurred over time. A large portion of the efforts that we're working on now began before the Hurricane Harvey as part of our typical watershed maintenance program. So all the channels that are included are within the Barker Reservoir Watershed, and they are within the Harris County Flood Control District's right of way and where we have property rights. The current limits of this project, they don't extend west of the Grand Parkway. We've included several channels that were what we call man-made channels, or channels that have been improved. So the reason for not extending west of 99 was because most of the channels west of 99 are channels that are natural. So we don't typically go in and desilt those. We let them just remain in their natural state and try to go in after storm events and do things like de-snags to make sure that it remains an open channel. This overall program includes approximately 22 miles of channels. That includes both the main stems and tributaries. And we are looking at having multiple packages for construction and desilt repair. For desilts and repairs. So this is a map of the Barkers Watershed. The larger area in gray here is the actual watershed. So this is all the area that drains into the Barker Reservoir. And the sort of darker area there is the actual limits of the Barkers Reservoir. So the goals of this project, again, are to do some desilts of the channels to remove the silt that has accumulated over time, to repair certain channel segments where we've realized some failures, and also to create that database for future maintenance that I mentioned. So the question comes in, for most people say, well, what is a desilt? And what the desilt is it's basically just the removal of sediment that accumulates over time. So after a heavy rain event, you get high waters, the water's moving pretty fast, and as the water starts to go down, it tends to slow down. And so all of the silt and the failures that happen from having such a high velocity of water moving down the channel, that silt or that dirt, if you will, starts to settle out, and it just deposits at the elevation at which the water starts to drop down. And when this happens over time, you end up with an accumulation of silt along the channel banks. If you're looking at the exhibits here in front of you, this is actually Horsepaint Creek, one that we've already performed a desilt on. But if you look at the left side of this, structure that's crossing over, which is a pipeline, you'll see a huge mound of that's actually a mound of silt. And over time, grass and things like that start to grow over it. And so it pretty much just becomes another obstruction from the original design. And then when you look at the bottom portion of this exhibit, you'll see that a lot of that silt has been, all of it has been cleaned out, and that elevation of that mound has now been removed. So now the water flows more freely, it conveys faster, so it becomes less of an obstruction. So this exhibit here is intended to show what I say when I mean an original design. So the flood control district's original design is typically what we call a trapezoidal channel. It has a flat bottom width, maybe a small potted channel in the bottom, and some pretty defined slopes. So, but when you look at the middle exhibit, that is what it looks like if you were to stand in the middle of the channel, and if you could slice it in the middle, the green line would be the silt accumulation that you would see. And on the bottom portion of the exhibit, it kind of meld those two together and shows you what that silt accumulation looks like over time. And so the question is why channel repairs needed. It's just because these failures occur and they roll just over years of time of, multiple rain events, some of them, extremely extreme and some of them really, really small. But once that failure starts to occur after every rain event, it only tends to spread further and further. So some examples of those failures that we're trying to repair are those that you would see here on the two exhibits or photos that are on the right side. So typically, if you're looking at this area where you see the green grass, that is the original bank. And just for illustration purposes, if you look down here where you see the green grass growing, at one time that was a flat slope that you could probably walk down without, without much difficulty. But now that failure has just caved in. And so what happens again after every rain event, that failure tends to go further and further back. And so the flood control district likes to go in, and we have to go in to repair these, because at some point, if it moves outside of the district's right of way, then it's a danger to private property. And that's something that we like to prevent. So some expectations that you can plan to see during construction. Of course, there's going to be a lot of heavy truck traffic. There'll likely be some lane closures from time to time because these really large trucks have to get in and out of major roadways. So this will typically be in the form of a one lane closure, probably a flagman or something, making sure that traffic is able to move through and make sure the traffic is slowing down to keep people in the area safe. You can expect there to be some temporary closures of trails and footpaths. And I think Brandy mentioned it earlier in one of her responses. We just ask that when the residents see these orange construction fences go up to block off an area, that you avoid going around those or tearing them down and trampling over them, because those things are just put there just for the safety of the public. Traffic control will be implemented when necessary. You can almost surely expect to see an increased amount of dust just due to the dump trucks and excavators and other equipment that will be out there, and also the fact that we're moving around dirt that hadn't been disturbed. We definitely do our best to work with the contractors to try to make sure that we keep that dust down in multiple ways. They have multiple options to do that. You can also expect that there will likely be some tree removals. We would definitely try to minimize and only remove the trees that are necessary to get good construction access for the equipment that will be out there doing the desilt. So right now, our current status of the desilt package, we're package one. Construction has essentially began on that one. But none of the desilt has been completed to this time. And we expect this to take about 310 days to complete. This map is just meant to illustrate the desilt packages for package one, and it's represented by the yellow lines that you see on the exhibit here. So these are the channels that we have identified to date that will need to be part of this package. So the repair package, we've done all of our site visits and we're currently working on a design. So we're taking pen to paper and starting to draw up those drawings. That drawing effort, if you will, is about 30% complete to date. And this map just illustrates the extent of the repairs that we intend to do as part of the Barkers Desilting Repair program. So our program schedule and next steps. So again, the program began almost a year ago. The desilt is expected to be completed by fall of 2021. The repair package, we expect to bid that project out in early spring 2021. That's the one that we're working on now. That's approximately 30% complete in design. We will be having another community engagement meeting at some point in 2021 just to update the community on how things are going. But quarterly updates will be on the website, and you can always go to hcfcd.org /F52 for updates on the project.
All right, thank you so much for that. Okay, we'll jump right back into the question and answer. It's always helpful sometimes to go back, especially when I notice a lot of individuals joining later. But we have had some questions to come in. And our next question, actually, ironically, Marcus, I'd like for you to take it. It says, I'm very concerned that the desilting will only fill the Barker Reservoir up more quickly. Archie, thank you for that question. Marcus, would you take it?
Yes, and Archie, that's actually a good observation, which means it shows that you were listening to what I was saying about speeding the water up. So so it's important to understand that this desilt is taking the channel back to its original design. So, however many years ago when we originally designed this, the reservoir was already in place. And so the water that gets there now is the water that the reservoir was already designed to accept. So we're not widening it or increasing it past anything that would create a larger problem, because it's just going back to its original state. And just over time, that's just from the buildup of it. But it's a good observation, though.
All right, thank you. Brandy, I'd like for you to take our next question from Bob, and it's, where can I go for updates about the construction schedule? Is there a mailing list?
Yes, I would recommend that you go to the website to find out information about the construction schedule. However, I will note that you may not find a detailed construction schedule on the website, just because that could change depending on where the contractor, it could be on weather, it could be on the number of crews availability. So the construction schedule, as far as locations and the length of it, always change. But as far as what channels have been completed, that information should be provided on the website for updates. So I ask that you please frequently check the website to see what has been updated. We do have a mailing list. Majority of our mailing list thus far has been with HOAs and utility districts to help get the word out and updates to the community faster, because they have a more detailed list. But if you would like to be for us to have your contact information as part of our records for that mailing list, please feel free to submit that information.
All right, thank you. Brandy, one more for you. When the silt is pulled out of the channel, do you let it dry or haul it away wet?
Yes. So if it's depending on where the sediment is located. If the sediment is located outside, above the water level, then it's easy to just place it on the top of bank, put it in a dump truck and take it off. However, if the sediment is below the water level, the contractor will take that sediment, place it at the top of bank to allow it to dry by draining back down into the channel before hauling off to the site. One of our main things is want to make sure that we keep the road safe and clean. And by doing this, it minimize the amount of mud or any traction that we put on the roads due to our projects.
Okay, thank you. And I do want to note, we are getting a few questions about T101-01 area or Green Trails Village Green Trails, Oaks, and other subdivisions in the area. When we have a start date for desilt activity, we will be updating the public. Currently, we do not have a hard start date, but we should have one very soon. So it would be great if you guys want to stay up to date on the project when we do send out information. If you're on our email list, we will be sure and get that information to you. And again, that URL is hcfcd.org/F52. That's hcfcd.org/F52 to stay up to date on projects. All right, Marcus, would you take this next question? It is, how do repair projects fit into the larger 2018 bond program?
Another good question. I kind of feel like our boss is on the other side asking these questions. So the way this fits into the 2018 bond program. So just to give you an idea, the Barker Desilt and Repair Program had $20 million allocated for those projects within the bond. The Harris County Flood Control District, typically pre-bond, operated off of $60 million for repairs or for operations and maintenance throughout the entire Harris County. So by us having the bond election, this allowed us to get a third of our overall budget for any year for this one particular project. And it's a huge deal because that $60 million, it covers other things other than just desilts and repairs within the area. So this just allows us to have a lot more money, a lot more funding to do a lot more work in a shorter period of time, because that $60 million that we used to function with for operations and maintenance, it competed against other projects where people thought things were probably more, something that was probably more important, or it's closer to failing. So I kind of mentioned some of those projects where we have a failure and it's getting close to affecting private property. Well, those projects would always take precedence over a standard desilt, because the desilt is just restoring to natural state. But a failure starts to put other locations in danger. So it's just a big deal to be able to have a third of our budget, of our operations and maintenance budget, for one particular project or program.
All right, thank you. And our next question is from Betty. Jonathan, I'd like for you to take it. And it says, does this mean that once the channels are cleared, that my home will no longer be at risk for flooding?
Well, we can't say that your home will no longer be at risk for flooding, but what we can say is that by restoring these channels to their original design intent and design capacity, we can reduce the risk of flooding by returning the channels conveyance capacity to their original intent.
All right, thank you. Brandy, our next question is from Linda. Are you removing? Sorry about that. Okay, our next question is from it's for Brandy, and it's from Linda. Are you removing the trash and larger debris people have thrown into our channels? It would be nice for them to get cleaned up in the process.
Yes, absolutely. That is a line item on as a part of the scope of work for this project, is to remove any large debris that can include large trees that are in the channel that may gather small trash and things that may accumulate. So that is a part of this construction contract, is to clean out the channel with large debris, small debris, and trash.
Okay, thank you. And our next question is from Lois. Marcus, will you take this one? Desilting of channels is great, but what is being done to the reservoir so elevated pool levels don't flood our homes again like they did during Hurricane Harvey?
Yes, Lois, and thanks for that question. We get a lot of questions about the reservoirs. So this program is the desilting, and it's working within the right-of-way of the Harris County Flood Control District and areas where we have rights to go in and do maintenance. The Flood Control District does not maintain the reservoir. That is a core effort. And so as part of this project, nothing is being done to the reservoir itself to, as you mentioned, to lower the elevations there. But I think the Corps are working on some things. And so any questions related to the function and the operation of the reservoir, we're going to defer to the Corps to answer.
All right, Brandy, would you take our next question from Hugo? How often will flood control be desilting channels after this current project?
Yes, as another goal and objective is to provide a maintenance plan for the channels within the Barker Reservoir watershed. And with that maintenance manual, we will turn the project over to our infrastructure department that's proposing that the channels be reevaluated after every major storm, as well as determine if their sediment levels are high enough to where desilting can take place every 5 to 7, possibly 10 years, depending on what that evaluation serves. So the first step will be for us to come out and evaluate the channels if after every major storm event. In addition, if there's not a major storm event, come out every 3 to 4 years to do evaluations to see what those levels are. And if the levels are, and when I mean by levels, I mean sediment as far as accumulation. If those are a large amount of sediment levels, then we will determine that a desilt project is necessary for those particular channels. Okay.
Brandy, would you also take this next question? Why are you not going past 99?
Yes. So majority of the channels that extend past 99 are considered natural channels, meaning that they have not been altered or designed to have some type of design capacity, design component to it. So therefore, the scope of work for this project was to only focus on channels that did have some type of design capacity, so where we knew what the original as-built plans look like in that area so that we could restore to those levels. The natural channels will take a lot of studying and time and design to be able to do that type of work. So this effort was more so to design quick, get out, remove the sediment out of the channel, so therefore that we're having a good product that benefits the public within this area of having channels that convey water to this design capacity.
All right, thank you. And I do want to note, we are getting several questions about the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Buffalo Bayou and Tributaries Resiliency Study. The Flood Control District's role has been to monitor and provide input when requested by the Corps. As of Friday, October 2nd, the study is available on the Corps' website for the public to review and comment. We urge everyone that lives or works in the study area to take the time to download the study, attend one or more of the public meetings, and submit your thoughts to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. All right, I think we have one more question before we sign off here. And Jonathan, I'd like for you to take this one. I have some questions about mowing of channels in my neighborhood. Who can I talk to about that?
Sure. You can submit your question through our website to our Community Services Division. They do get a lot of questions about that. And of course, like we talked about earlier, it's going to be a neighborhood specific question. But we do realize a lot of people are concerned about when the channels behind their houses or in their neighborhoods are going to be mowed and maintained, and how often that happens, and what the regular process is for that. So you can go through our website to get to our community services folks.
And that's a really good place, I think, for us to close. As a reminder, if you have additional questions or comments, or if you would like to sign up for email alerts, or in the example about mowing, if you have a question about mowing, log on to our website at hcfcd.org/F52. And you can submit any comments you have. We will be following up with everyone who's attended this meeting tonight and addressing any questions that were not addressed during the Q&A session. And of course, the information from this meeting, including the presentation and the live stream, will be available on the Flood Control District's website. So with that, I'd just like to share one final reminder that we are continuing to accept comments and feedback on this particular program through the comment period, which runs through October 22nd. But we, of course, welcome engagement throughout the duration of the project's life cycle. Thank you again for joining us this evening and for your engagement with this project. We look forward to continuing to share updates as our work moves forward. Stay safe and have a lovely evening.